Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again, and today I'm doing a video 21 questions, so stay tuned for that. And if you like fragrance reviews, top 10 lists, cologne comparisons, and first impressions, hit that subscribe button for more great content. So this was an open tag, I think from Corbin from Northwest Scent. I will leave a comment down below. I'm also going to make this an open tag for anyone who wants to do the video, and I'm going to leave all the questions down in the comments just to make it a little bit easier for people who might find it interesting or anyone who wants to really just engage with these questions. It's way easier when they're already written out than trying to figure out what they all are by listening to the video. So anyways, I'm going to get right into the 21 questions. Most of them are fragrance related, a couple of them are not, but we'll see. So the first one, have you ever been to school for perfumery? The answer to that is no, I haven't. I have played around a little bit. There's been stores that I've been near which do let you create your own perfumes. I do have some oils myself, and I've played around with them to create my own perfumes, and it was nice, or has been nice, smelling each of the individual components by themselves. In some ways it's really cool to do that because you can smell something on its own and then come to understand how much different it can smell in a composition when it's blended with something. And if anything else, or if nothing else, it's really shown me how difficult and complex it can be to really create and master a really nice fragrance. So always a little bit more respect for the perfumers because of that. And like I said, it's been an enjoyable and interesting experience for me. I do like mixing up things once in a while. It is actually very fun, and when you do strike on something you love, it's quite rewarding. So there is that, but I have considered taking maybe a course or something online just to get a little bit more actual knowledge about it instead of just kind of mixing things up on my own without any real or without having to discover what things really smell like blended, having a better idea of what blending certain things might do to each other. But anyways, do you consider yourself addicted to fragrances? This is question number 2. Certainly there was a time when I definitely was, and I spent a lot of money. I'm sure a lot of people have this problem or have had this problem on fragrances that, to be honest, it was piling up to so many that I would virtually never use them all. And even now, it would take me a very long time to use all the fragrances that I have. Now, I have definitely got it a little bit more under control personally. I do find that, for me anyways, getting samples really satisfies a lot of that urge to buy new fragrances and to try new things. So for me anyways, sampling does work as a less expensive way because, frankly, if I bought every fragrance that I was interested in trying, a lot of them I might think are nice, but I'd wear them once or twice and never wear them again. So, in that respect, it is nice to get decants to just sort of try them out a little bit, get a feel for them, maybe do a review of the fragrance, and if I really love it, then I'll consider buying it. But I am definitely trying to keep my collection a little bit tighter, a little bit more centered around fragrances that I really love. So I'll sample a lot, but I will buy very few. At least that's what I'm doing right now. It just seems a little bit more practical, and I don't want to have fragrances that I look at after like 6 months. I'm like, I haven't worn this in so long. Like, I actually want to get use out of them. But anyways, the third question, what is your first memory of wearing fragrance? So, originally I thought this was my granddad, but maybe it was my dad because I heard that he also really liked this. Could be either. And I remember finding a bottle of, I think it was my dad, a bottle of Old Spice. And I do remember, putting it on and smelling it and enjoying that and just liking the feeling of wearing it. So that is probably one of the oldest memories. I also remember a few perfume bottles my mom had. I actually remember, I don't remember the brand, but if I saw what the bottle looked like, they were quite unique. I would definitely be like, oh, that's totally something from my childhood. But those are the two oldest sort of memories, and I did enjoy Old Spice, and every once in a while I actually think of getting Old Spice just for the nostalgia, but I don't know. Everybody says Viking smells like Old Spice, so I got Viking. I don't need that Old Spice. Next one. What was the first fragrance you purchased with your own money? Sadly, if we think of any sort of fragrance thing other than, say, deodorant, it would have been Axe. So I did buy Axe a couple of times, and I wore it feeling all confident with my Axe on, which was, looking back now, and I guess, some of their fragrances are kind of okay. But some of them are actually really, really bad. So I don't know why I went through that whole Axe thing, but I know a lot of people did. More recently, it would have been Nautica Voyage. I still think that's a really solid fragrance, especially at the price point. I think this was more when I was starting to kind of get into the whole fragrance thing, and I was looking for some stuff, and Voyage was the first thing I bought. And I did buy something from David Beckham. I forget exactly what it was. It was actually not a bad fragrance. It just smelled like a very traditionally masculine fragrance. It wasn't bad, but it just, I guess, yeah, I don't know. It smelled more classic, I guess. So I wasn't a huge fan of it. So the oldest fragrance in your collection would actually be that bottle of Voyage. So I do still have it. I don't wear it that often, very infrequently actually. And it's funny because the longer it's been sitting there, the more I found when I first had it, there seemed like a little bit of harshness that sometimes I pick up on. And I find it seems to maybe have matured. That sort of edge that it had is definitely smoothed out. It's still actually a really nice fragrance. You know, sometimes I'll wear it to the gym. I'll just do a couple sprays. I want something light. But it is just such an easy to wear fragrance that is a crowd pleaser. It's definitely been one that, you know, I think I've gotten quite a few compliments with that one. More than a lot of much more expensive fragrances. So, you know, take that however you want to take it. But it is a people pleaser. It is a really cheap and easy to wear fragrance. So, what is a fragrance you can't stand the smell of? You know, the easy answer here, that's number 6, by the way. The easy answer here is something like Secretions Magnifique. I did a first impression of this one. I was a little surprised because really right on the opening, it has this freshness and it doesn't smell that bad. It actually smells decent. But, you know, within about 5 or 10 minutes, it really starts to smell like a weird concoction of bodily fluids. That one is a little bit easy, so I'm not going to actually say, well, that's one of the ones I'll say. The other one I actually was surprised about. I think it was Russian Leather by Memo. And that one I did a first impression of, and it was such a scrubber. It was so gross. And I know that one's a little bit more popular. So this is a mid-popular one. I got one that's really popular. I'll mention in a second. But it was so not what I was looking for. And I'm so happy because I was thinking of blind buying that one because it sounded really cool. It sounded really good. But for me, it was just this really cringy kind of vomit-inducing fragrance. I don't use that lightly because most fragrances, even if I dislike them, I don't have a really negative reaction. I'd be like, oh, it's not for me, but this one was a scrubber. And the only other fragrance that I can think of actually, which I guess would be the most popular one, although maybe it's not that more popular, is Aqua Amara. This was such a scrubber for me. I put it on, sprayed it, 2 seconds later I was like, oh my god, get this off my hand. It was just so bad. But the really popular one that I was going to mention, Baccarat Rouge 540, it just smells like latex to me, and I just don't really like that smell, so why would I want to smell like latex? Next one is not fragrance related. Favorite food. You know, if we're talking about casual food, I really love burgers. I know that sounds lame, or maybe because it's just so simple. You know, I do love cheeseburgers. But if we're talking about actual food that I'm going to go get or whatever, or if I was really going to splurge on something I really loved, probably be something like Indian food. You know, I love curry with naan bread, and most people might say it's sacrilegious, but I'll take the rice, mix it up with the curry, and make a sandwich or like a wrap out of the naan bread. That I absolutely love doing. Or something like sushi I also really enjoy, so sushi is really quite good too. Do you prefer sweet, salty, mild, or spicy? So this is question number 8. It was hard to pick. You know, definitely if I'm going for a treat or something, it's not going to be something sweet. I mean, sometimes it is, but ultimately I prefer salty or spicy food. You know, I like things like chips, nachos, burgers, as I mentioned. Spicy food, I love salsa, hot sauce, spicy curry, for example. Really, really enjoy that. So salty or spicy, it's really hard to pick between this. I'd probably eat more spicy food more salty food more regularly. So there is that. Last fragrance purchase. This is question number 9. It's Allure Homme Sport Cologne. Really like that one. I think it's one from the line that doesn't get that much talk. I know it's been talked about a little bit, but it seems that Edition Blanche and Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme get most of the spotlight, and they're good fragrances, although I like Allure Homme Sport better than the Eau Extreme. But Cologne, I think, is my favorite from the line. Absolute favorite from the line. Really great lemon, orange, neroli, spring fragrance, summer fragrance. Really, really good. Love that one quite a bit. And the performance is not that bad. I get about 6 hours, so it is a pretty good one. Number 10, what fragrance have you been thinking of buying for a long time but just haven't gotten around to it? Most recent one, probably Enclave. Mostly because it's hard to find Amouage, especially newer ones anyways, for discount, and I don't really want to pay retail. I know that in time I will be able to find it for a discounted price, and which would be, for me, worth it. To me, it's a very versatile, mass appealing, I think it's fairly mass appealing, and yet somewhat unique fragrance that you can probably wear just about any time. So Enclave is definitely one of my favorites of the new ones. And I think that would probably be next on my buy list, but I mean, you never know. There's maybe a few Killians here or there, but I have so many Killians already. I think that probably would be it. So number 11, do you have a dream fragrance but think it's too expensive? So generally speaking, no. Fragrances that I really love, I generally will even be willing to spend or pay retail for. So I bought Straight to Heaven Extreme retail, which is like $320 US dollars, which is not cheap. Now I will admit I do really like Viking, but would have a hard time paying retail because it's like 500 USD. And so something like that, maybe if you couldn't find it retail or you couldn't find it on the gray market for much cheaper, I got mine for about 160 US dollars. Certainly might fit into this category, but the really outlandishly expensive like Roja fragrances that are like $1,000, or some of the Fragrance du Bois fragrances, I think they're around that range. I haven't really smelt any, or the ones that I haven't smelt them that I love and found that I love them. So for me, the answer is no, not really. Potentially there could be if I explored some of the really expensive Rojas, or maybe Bodesis the Victorious, Boudicca the Victorious, maybe some of those fragrances I would find that I love. And really, once you move even into that $500 range, whether you're paying retail or gray market, that's pretty expensive. For me, I have paid about $300. And I think, when you consider how much I paid duty when I did get Italica, I paid duty, and I think I paid shipping, it probably was around $300 US dollars, which kind of sucked because it was such a good deal online, but duty I got nailed with that in Canada. So yeah, that's what I'll say. For now, no, technically, but like I said, once you get over that 300 some odd dollar range, it becomes a lot harder for me to justify. So, what is the cheapest fragrance in your collection? Do you like it? Yes, the cheapest fragrance I do like, and it's Cola by Outremer. I think it is cheaper than Nautica. It might not be, but I've already mentioned Nautica, and I know they're comparably priced. Cola was about $15 or $20 US for 50 mil. And you know what? It's a really awesome fragrance. Opens up with a really, really great Coca-Cola gummy vibe. So it smells like those 25-cent candies that you can get. And I love those candies. I loved them as a kid, so there's those memories there. And it does have this, right on the initial burst, it has this really nice cola vibe too. That actually smells a little bit more like the drink and then shifts into the gummies. Now it does have cloves and stuff in it, so especially once you get into the mid and the dry down, it does become more of a fresh, spicy fragrance. Shout out to Rush, by the way. He did suggest I try that one out. And if you love cola fragrances, it is so worth trying out. And especially for the price point, it's good. It doesn't last a long time, maybe about 4 hours. But again, $20 fragrance, 4 hours, and yeah, it's really nice for that. So 13, what is the most expensive fragrance in your collection? So I kind of already alluded to this. If you consider retail price, it would probably be Creed Viking. Retail is like $560 for 100 ml, which is pretty crazy in my opinion. Like I said, anything in that range I would have a hard time paying. I did pay $160 from Costco. So if you do have a membership, especially in the States, do be on the lookout. They oftentimes will get Creed fragrances or other fragrances, and the markdown is crazy. You can get really, really good deals. So do be on the lookout for those fragrances if you're interested. I saw Royal Water for $90, which is crazy. But the one that I probably paid the most for would be something like Single Malt by Killian or Straight to Heaven Extreme. I think both those were in that $320 range, and I did end up paying retail. Partially single malt, very hard to find. And straight to heaven extreme, it is a little bit harder to find like a tester or something where it's discounted. So, there is that, and I did really want them. I do really love them, so I got them. So the next question is, does your partner wear fragrance, and is there one she doesn't like? So I guess I'm not really seeing anyone right now, but the last girlfriend I did have, or the last couple, I'll go over the last two. The last one, yes, she did wear fragrances. She never actually said that she disliked anything I wore, and she really liked the one, EDP. And in fact, I got the most outrageous comment from her while wearing that fragrance. One of the reasons I don't count it as heavily, like obviously it was cool, but it wasn't a stranger saying it. We were seeing each other at the time. So obviously getting those kinds of comments from someone that you're seeing, of course they're going to be a little bit more common. The girl I was seeing before that, she actually really liked Eros Flame on me. She also loved Wanted by Night. So those are both really good ones. And Wanted by Night's a beast. There was nothing I don't think that she disliked. She really loved Elysium. And I actually stole a trick. That was the first time I went over to her place. Jeremy said you should spray some of your cologne on, or your fragrance on her pillow or something, because it'll leave your smell around and she'll become intoxicated by it or whatever. And I sprayed it on one of her blankets that we'd been sort of cuddling in. And next time I was over, she mentioned it. She brought it over. I could still smell it, and she loved it. Like, she absolutely loved that fragrance. So I guess it works. You guys can try it at your own caution if you want. But yeah. Okay. So question number 15. Is it common or rare for people in your area to wear fragrance? I would say rare. Wherever. Most of the places I've been, especially in Canada, I find that a lot of people do not wear fragrance. I remember my entire time through graduate school, there was one girl who wore fragrance quite frequently. I would notice if I walked into the office, she would, it would smell a bit, but I wasn't a huge fan of it. It was a little, I will say it's weird. I don't typically, we'll get to this in a second, don't typically feel like there's a lot of gender in fragrances, but it did smell a little masculine on her, which was fine. I mean, she was awesome, but didn't so much like the perfume. But like I said, there's not that many people. I've smelled a handful of people here and there, which I always find funny. People think of like Sauvage and other fragrances that, yes, people are familiar with them, but like, even then I hardly ever smell them. So, I mean, I think it's maybe more common in some areas of America, or maybe definitely in Europe. So, number 16, coffee or tea. If we're drinking it, or if I'm drinking it, tea. If I'm smelling it, coffee. I love the smell of coffee. And by the way, if you like coffee fragrances, Kerosene Follow, Acro Awake, both really, really good coffee fragrances, especially if you're looking for something that is in fact coffee dominant and is very, very coffee forward. So the next question, do you wear fragrances marketed towards the opposite gender? In general, I don't see fragrance or don't smell fragrance as gendered. There are a few things that to me that do have a certain gender to them. Heavily floral fragrances do come off as a little bit feminine to me. And certain other fragrances might be a little bit more masculine, like heavy vetiver fragrances. But in general, I don't really care that much. And I think that if somebody really loves a fragrance that's maybe marketed to women, and they love it, they should wear it anyways. Have the confidence to do that. And for some reason, I think Noir de Noir is marketed as a female fragrance. So I've worn that several times. I really like it. I guess I can understand why. It is a little bit of a dark rose, but it is very dark. And for me, that makes it very unisex. I really like that one. So I suppose that's one. Another one that I actually liked, I didn't really wear it, but I did try it out. Vanilla Orchid, or Orchid. Vanilla Orchid. I always say that one wrong. By Precious Liquid. And it is marketed to women, and I was very surprised. Yes, it's a gourmandy fragrance. It does have this sort of Oreo cream filling vibe to it, and it has this sort of nice sensuality that most gourmand fragrances have, but I think that's one I would wear like crazy. And a lot of people would say gourmand fragrances are very feminine, but I love them, right? I love Italica. I love, Angel Share, Wajan, all these really sweet, sugary dessert treat fragrances. So I guess in some respect, I certainly do wear things that are a little bit more feminine leaning or smell feminine. But for me, I say just wear whatever you like. I do always wonder, if somebody wears a fragrance. There's a fragrance by Killing called Good Girl Gone Bad. And if somebody asks them because I know a lot of guys love that fragrance. And if they're wearing it, and leave a comment below if you wear this fragrance. If somebody asks you, do you or would you say the fragrance is called Good Girl Gone Bad, even though you're a guy? That one's a little bit harder in my opinion, but I mean, big ups to anybody who loves that and just wears it anyways. I think that's great. So, next question, question 18. When traveling, do you use full bottles or decants? For the most part, I use decants. I have used full bottles before. I have a lot of decants, and oftentimes I'll bring some fragrances that I have decanted. And I also usually have some small decants of a lot of the fragrances that I have, just because if I'm going to work, a lot of times I'll go to the gym in the morning. I don't want to bring a full bottle every time, especially if it's an expensive fragrance. Do I really want to bring like a $300 fragrance to work? Not really, right? So I'll, in that case, have decants. And so I usually bring that as a nice selection, and I'll have 5 to 10 fragrances, maybe more, especially if I plan on doing some reviews when I travel. But like I said, I have brought bottles, but more often than not these days, especially, it is decants, and especially because I do have some usually pre-made anyways, or purchased samples that I bring as well. So we're almost done. Question 19, do you typically get a lot of compliments on your fragrances? Not really. I've definitely gotten some, and I've gotten a few from strangers, complete strangers. Most of the compliments that I've gotten are from people that I know. And so, I know a lot of people have also said this, and a lot of people get this impression, but some of the compliment stories people are throwing around have got to be completely made up. I know there's people that probably do get more compliments than me and whatever, but some stories are so outrageous. You walk out the door, you get 20 compliments from complete strangers too. I find that hard to believe. Maybe more likely from a lot of people or friends. That's one thing, or people you work with, but especially complete strangers, most people, they don't have that. They're not going to go walk up to somebody they don't even know and say, oh, you smell nice. It might happen once in a while, and it's happened to me once in a while. But it's not that common. It doesn't happen that often. But yes, I've gotten some. But yeah, I'll get into the rest at the end, the last question. But question number 20, do you wear fragrance when you're home alone? Not all the time. And sometimes I certainly don't. And usually when I do, it's more something that I'll spray on my hand or I'll test on my hand. I do a lot of testing when I'm at home as well. The reason I put it on my hand is just so I can smell it. I can smell it easily. Because even if you smell it here and there is nice sillage, I personally don't always get it. I often go nose blind, which it can be, especially when you want to know the actual performance of a fragrance. It's nice to have other people smell you. And by the way, this is the most frustrating part of fragrance, is that oftentimes you can't smell it, right? You put it on, but you don't smell it, right? And it's just like, sometimes I wonder, why I do it. But oftentimes I will. There's a lot of fragrances I find very relaxing. A lot of fragrances that I like the smell of, obviously. And like I said, when I'm testing fragrances, a lot of times I'm just sitting around home and I'll have a fragrance on each hand or something like that to sort of get the impression of it. So do you wear fragrance for yourself or to get compliments? As I was going to entail, for myself. I don't mind getting compliments. Obviously, I think you should be able to accept a compliment. It's a little weird if you're going out of your way trying to get compliments. And the way I feel, especially about fragrance, is that, I would probably find it, if I created my own fragrance and people complimented me on it, for me, that would probably be quite meaningful. Because it's something that I've done, but with something that I'm wearing, it's nice that you enjoy it. And I typically, I don't want people to think that I smell gross. But I wouldn't personally go out of my way to get compliments with fragrance. I would find it more meaningful to me anyways to get compliments on something that I myself had created, or some work that I had done, or something that I personally had put the effort into creating or doing myself. That would be much more meaningful rather than just spraying on something that, obviously a very talented, in most cases, perfumer created. Really you're kind of complimenting the perfumer more than anything else, in my opinion. But, just in closing, I think you should, for me personally, you can do whatever you want. That's the beauty. If you want compliments and you want to wear things for compliments, go ahead and do that. But I think you should sort of just wear things that you personally enjoy, because it's kind of in some way an extension of yourself. And I don't feel like it's a good thing to be going out into the world and being constantly looking for validation outside of yourself, rather than finding that validation from inside yourself. That's my personal opinion. You got to find your own true value yourself to really feel as though you have, substantial value and contribute something to the outwards world. But enough of this rant, this little tangent here. That's really all I got to say about that. So those are the 21 questions. I am going to leave them in the description. Feel free to answer a few of the questions. Leave them in a comment down below for you personally, if you want to answer a couple. And of course, if you do want to do this video, open tag to everybody, and take those questions and definitely put them in your video. And yeah, great, awesome, have fun with it. And you know what? Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.